Thomas, Percy, and Old Slow Coach. Thomas, Percy, and James were looking at the early morning sky. "Everyone is so much happy when springtime comes," said Thomas. "Everyone except the Fat Controller," grumbled James. "He seems to be working us harder than ever. I'm tired of these coastal runs." "He just wants everything to be ready for the holidays," replied Percy. "Anyway, salty air makes me all cheerful in my smoke box." "Pah!" snorted James. "It's the countryside that really gets me fired up. It's the only place to be." And he puffed away to collect his fuel trucks from the docks. Thomas and Percy had to take some empty trucks to the scrap yards near Edward Station. When they arrived, they saw an old coach. She looked really sad. "What are you doing here?" asked Percy. "They called me Old Slow Coach and told me I wasn't useful anymore. Now only the mice riding me." "Well, you may be dusty, but you look in perfect shape." The yard manager appeared. "Come along, I had trucks for you to take away." "Excuse me," said Percy's driver. "Can you tell us about this coach?" "Oh, Slow Coach. She's been there for years. She'll be broken up when we find the time." The engines were dismayed. "We'll try and help you," said Thomas, but he didn't know how. Meanwhile, James was enjoying himself as he went through the countryside. But he was heading for trouble. One of the fuel trucks was leaking. Then suddenly, it caught fire. "Oh, help!" cried James. They reached a siding, and his driver, fireman, and guard ran to the nearest signal box to call the fire brigade. As Thomas and Percy approached the junction, they saw the smoke and a guard waving a red flag. "Sparks from James's funnel has set the trucks ablaze," he called. "The fire is under control, but it's quite a mess." "You said the countryside got you all fired up, James," giggled Percy. "But I didn't think you meant it in this way." "Ha!" snorted James. "It was those silly trucks' fault, not mine." "It's safe to proceed now," called the fireman. Thomas and Percy puffed slowly by, and now felt sorry for James. Later, the two engines were having a long drink at the water towers after dropping off their trains at the yard, when they suddenly heard a commotion. "What's the matter?" Thomas asked. "It's another fire, but it's at the workman's hut," replied Percy. "We better see what we can do." The two engines raced to the scene just in time as the fire engines arrived, but they have a big problem. "We are completely out of water," cried the fireman. "We can't use seawater because it clogs our hoses. We just had to let that building burn." Then Thomas had an idea. "Why don't you use the water in our tanks? We just refill them." The fireman wasted no time. "You're very clever engines," chuckled their drivers. Soon the fire was out, but the hut where the workmen lived was destroyed. "We need somewhere to live. We can't sleep on the beach," said the foreman. "What about Old Slow Coach? She would be perfect for the workmen." "And comfy too," added Thomas. "What a good idea, Percy," said his driver. They phoned the Fat Controller, who agreed. She was quickly spick and span by the time Thomas and Percy collected her. Old Slow Coach was very happy. "I can't thank you enough. I feel splendid." The engines buffeted up to her, and she set off happily for her new home. Everyone agreed there was nothing old or slow about Coach, and she will always be really useful indeed.